Black CEO denied service at bank. 10 minutes later, she fires the entire branch team. How? What happened? Find out in this powerful story. Don't forget to like, share, and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. The lobby of Heritage Trust Bank buzzed with quiet routine. Printers whirred. Phones rang in soft tones. A child's cartoon hummed from a tablet near the seating area. Everything looked normal, too practiced. Until Ava Morgan walked in. She wore a sage green blouse, silk, ivory trousers that flowed like calm water. Her heels tapped the floor with subtle authority. Her dark brown skin glowed under the lobby lights, her hair pulled back in a sleek, deliberate twist. She carried a slim black folder, her nails manicured in soft beige. Every inch of her said she belonged. But Karen Holt didn't think so. Karen barely looked up from her screen as Ava approached the counter. She glanced once, just long enough to see a black woman standing alone, and instantly pasted on the kind of smile built to dismiss. "Yes?" she said curtly. "Good afternoon," Ava replied, voice smooth and warm. "I'm here to initiate a corporate wire transfer. For Sinclair and Rowe Capital." Karen's smile didn't shift. She didn't check the system. She didn't ask for ID. She just folded her arms. "Do you have an appointment?" Ava tilted her head, calm but curious. "I wasn't aware I needed one. I've done this transaction here quarterly for years. The account is in my name." "Yes, well," Karen sighed, tapping her nails against the desk. "Policies changed. Large transactions require appointments. You'll have to come back tomorrow." Still, she hadn't looked Ava in the eyes. Ava set her folder on the counter. "I understand new policy, but I've handled this without issue in this very branch, without an appointment, for over a decade." Karen finally looked up. Her eyes flicked from Ava's blouse to her purse, to her skin, and back to the monitor. She didn't even pretend to check for the name. "Like I said, you'll have to come back." The tone wasn't professional anymore. It was personal. It was sharp in that way that told Ava she wasn't really being spoken to as a customer. She was being put in her place. A pause. Now, a few heads were turning. A man in line moved his phone a little lower. Someone in a blazer nearby stopped typing. Karen shifted uncomfortably. "Well, we are short-staffed and unable to assist today. There are other important customers to attend to, not someone looking like you and can't even offer much value to this bank." Ava stared at her for a long moment. "Is this about policy, or is it about how I look?" Karen's jaw twitched. "Excuse me? You saw me walk in here, a black woman. Alone. No briefcase. And you decided I couldn't possibly be someone important." Ava took a breath. Calm. Composed. Her voice never rose. "I see." She glanced at Karen's name tag, then turned slightly as the glass door to the office opened. Out walked Richard Langston, the branch manager. He'd clearly caught the tail end of the conversation. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, putting on his best customer-pleasing smile. Ava turned to him slowly. "Are you the manager?" "I am," he said. "Let's not escalate anything. I'm sure we can figure out whatever's going on here." "Escalation?" Ava asked, raising a brow. "I made a simple request. Your employee dismissed me without checking anything. I'm not upset. Just observant." Richard glanced nervously at Karen, then back at Ava. "I'm sure that wasn't intentional." "I'm sure it was," Ava replied, cutting him off. "But don't worry. I won't raise my voice." She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. Her voice dropped an octave, calm, sharp, clear. "Elliot. It's Ava. Freeze all Sinclair and Rowe Capital accounts at Heritage Trust. Effective immediately." Richard's expression collapsed. Karen blinked, stunned. "Wait," Richard said, voice rising. "Did you say Sinclair and?" Ava ended the call. The name clicked in the room like a gunshot. Richard went pale. Karen went completely still. You're Ava Morgan?" he whispered. "I am," she replied evenly. "And what I experienced here today wasn't a policy issue. It was a perception issue." She placed the black folder gently on the counter. Didn't open it. Just left it there like a final move in a game they didn't realize they were playing. "Someone from your executive team will be here shortly. Until then, I suggest you begin gathering your things." She turned, calmly, and walked to the lounge area. Sat down. Crossed her legs. Still in the room. Still watching. Still very much in charge. The silence in Heritage Trust Bank felt unnatural now. Not the usual customer hush. This was heavier. Thicker. Like the air itself was waiting for permission to breathe again. Ava Morgan sat with effortless poise in the corner lounge, legs crossed, her phone resting in her lap. She didn't fidget. Didn't speak. She watched. And every second she remained in the room made the tension twist tighter. Karen Holt sat stiffly at her teller window, barely blinking. Her cheeks were burning, hands cold and clammy. She knew at the moment Ava spoke those words. Freeze all Sinclair and Rowe Capital accounts. She had dismissed the Ava Morgan, the billionaire CEO. The woman who was already the subject of financial magazine covers, Forbes 40 Under 40, and countless speaking panels on black female leadership in business. And she had treated her like she didn't belong. Like she had wandered into the wrong place. Inside the manager's office, Richard Langston paced. He'd undone his tie and was muttering to himself, trying to figure out how to ruin what was already ruined. He barely heard the glass doors open again. But he saw the ripple. Anthony Brewster, the regional vice president, stormed in, brow furrowed, phone still in hand, blazer barely sitting right on his shoulders. He wasn't just upset. He was panicked. He made it to the counter in 3 long strides, bypassing the customers, ignoring the awkward tension in the room. Where is she? Karen stood up too quickly. She's still here. In the lounge. Brewster's jaw clenched. Still? She sat down after she froze the accounts, Karen whispered. Anthony slowly turned and saw her. Ava sat with the serenity of a queen. Not angry. Not smug. Just present. With authority. He approached cautiously. Ms. Morgan, he began, voice low, respectful, apologetic. I am so incredibly sorry. There's been a massive misunderstanding. Ava didn't look at him yet. Instead, she reached into her handbag, pulled out a black business card, and handed it to him without a word. He read it. His heart sank. Ava Morgan, Chief Executive Officer, Sinclair and Rowe Capital. Embossed. Gold-lined. Weighty. He already knew who she was, but something about holding her card made it real in a way his title couldn't shield him from. You were dismissed by staff who failed to do even the minimum, he said carefully. Please believe me, we don't tolerate that kind of treatment. Ava looked at him now. But you do tolerate it. You've built a system where this happens so often, your people don't even realize when they're doing it. Ms. Morgan. No raised voices, Ava said. No aggression. No threats. I walked in calmly, gave my name, and made a routine request. She leaned forward. And your staff didn't see me. Not because I wasn't clear, but because I didn't fit what they thought a CEO looked like. Karen, now standing behind the VP, was visibly trembling. She looked like she might faint. I didn't know who you were, she stammered. I thought you were just. Say it, Ava said softly, turning to her. Karen's throat tightened. Just someone. Someone who didn't belong, Ava finished for her. There were no words after that. Just guilt. Karen's lips quivered. Richard stood silently behind the glass, watching it all unravel. Ava reached into her bag once more and brought out the folder she asked her assistant to prepare and bring, which is why she was waiting. This time, she pulled out the black folder and handed it to the VP. These are for your team. He opened it. Inside, a stack of documents. Termination notice. Signed, sealed, formalized. Karen's name sat on top. Richard Langston's name followed, although he was just demoted. The VP swallowed. Ms. Morgan, I beg you to reconsider. I don't reconsider when my humanity has to be proven before my identity is respected. The lobby was so quiet, you could hear someone's bracelet shift as they turned. A customer in the far corner reached for their phone, recording quietly. Ava stood. Straightened her blouse. Collected her things. Looked once more at Karen, now frozen, eyes wide, breath shaking. If I had walked in here wearing a gray suit and a Rolex, you'd have rolled out the red carpet. Instead, you rolled your eyes. She turned to the VP. I'll expect a written confirmation by end of business. If it isn't in my inbox, your board will be hearing directly from my firm's legal division." And then she walked back toward the front of the bank. Still composed. Still calm. Still completely in control. The room? Frozen. The regional VP, Anthony Brewster, stood over the documents with pale lips and sweat trickling beneath his collar. He wasn't speaking anymore. There was nothing left to say. Ava Morgan, however, was still speaking. But her voice remained soft. Unshaken. "This isn't about your staff making a mistake," she said, addressing the VP, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "Mistakes get corrected." She looked over her shoulder at Karen, who was now visibly trembling behind the counter. This was about bias. Dismissal. Disrespect that came easy, because you looked at me and saw a woman who didn't belong in your idea of wealth, power, or worth. Karen choked on her breath. "I didn't know." Ava stepped forward, close enough for Karen to see her reflection in her eyes. "You didn't know because you didn't care to. You looked at my skin, my silence, and my smile, and made a decision." Karen's lip trembled. "I didn't realize." "That's the part you should remember. You didn't realize. Because women like me walk into places like this all the time, and you decide who matters before they speak." Karen's voice cracked. "Please, I'm so sorry." "I'm not here for an apology," Ava said, straightening. "I'm here for accountability." Behind her, Richard Langston stepped forward now, his tone low and panicked. "Ms. Morgan, with all due respect, I don't believe termination is the right approach, maybe suspension while she—" Ava turned to him. And silence snapped the room again. "Do you know how many times I've walked into this branch with the same request?" she asked. "Do you know how many times I've stood here, quietly, while your staff looked through me?" He opened his mouth. She raised a hand. "This is not a punishment. This is a correction." The VP ran a hand over his face. "Ms. Morgan, the publicity alone. You should have considered that before your team made a public display out of humiliating a client you never bothered to Google." The lobby stirred again. Someone was definitely filming now. A quiet red light blinked on a phone held near someone's purse. Ava turned to the room. "Let this be a lesson to anyone watching," she said. "Never assume silence means power isn't present. And never forget that the woman you ignore today may be the one signing your termination tomorrow." The VP took a deep breath. "We'll process the paperwork. Today." Ava nodded. "You'll find everything in the folder. Legal copies are already with my counsel. The board has been blind copied." She turned toward the front door. And just as she passed the glass vestibule, a voice called out from behind. "Ms. Morgan?" A young voice. A new one. A bank intern, barely out of college, stood from behind a desk near the corner. He hadn't spoken during the incident. He hadn't stopped it, either. But now? He stepped forward, visibly nervous. I'm sorry. I should have said something. I saw what was happening, and I froze. I didn't think it was my place." Ava paused, turned around, and gave him a long, thoughtful look. "Next time," she said, "make it your place." He nodded. Quiet, ashamed, but grateful. Ava gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Then she pushed open the door, her heels tapping once more across the marble. Outside the glass doors of Heritage Trust Bank, the sun spilled across the sidewalk in gold ribbons. Ava Morgan stepped into the light, her heels clicking with finality against the stone steps. She didn't rush. She didn't look back. Her assistant, Lena, stood beside the car, phone in hand, eyes wide. "That was intense," she said quietly. Ava adjusted the cuff of her sleeve. "It was necessary." Lena hesitated. "You could have walked away after the first insult. You didn't have to fire and demote the whole team." Ava looked out across the street, where a handful of onlookers had started filming. She wasn't surprised. These things moved fast now. Before the hour was up, the internet would know exactly what had happened. "That's the problem," Ava said. "People think walking away makes you graceful. But sometimes grace looks like holding the door open while justice walks through." Lena nodded slowly, her respect growing deeper than ever before. Later that evening, the story broke wide. Black female CEO fires entire bank branch staff after being refused service. Well, You can expect news outlets to exaggerate. Clips from the incident spread across platforms. Hundreds of thousands of reposts. Some applauded the power move. Others debated it. But the facts were simple. Ava Morgan had entered a branch her company helped keep afloat. She was refused, ignored, and dismissed, not because of policy, but perception. And she made sure no one in that room would forget it. The next morning, Heritage Trust issued a public apology. "We deeply regret the treatment of Ms. Ava Morgan." The usual statements. The usual spin. But Ava didn't bother to respond. She didn't need to. The market did that for her. The company's shares dipped. PR firms scrambled. Other banks reached out quietly, privately, eager to win her business. But Ava had already moved on. A week later, in a sunlit conference room filled with rising black women entrepreneurs, Ava stood at the head of the table, in jeans and a blazer, no script in hand. She was sharing the story, not the viral version. The why. "I didn't hold on to that power just to make noise," she told them. "I held it for moments like that, so no one ever forgets what it looks like when we stop asking to be seen." She paused. "They didn't see a CEO when I walked in. They saw a black woman. And they assumed that meant less. She met each of their eyes in turn. That's why I stayed. That's why I acted. Because if I had walked away quietly, nothing would have changed. But now? People remember. People reconsider. That's the kind of power I want you to carry. Not just ambition. Awareness. Boundaries. Presence." She smiled. "And when someone makes the mistake of underestimating you, don't get loud. Get clear. Never assume quiet means powerless. People often judge by what they see: skin, status, silence. But real power doesn't beg to be seen. It shows up, stands tall, and takes action. Respect isn't given by default, it's earned by how you respond when it's denied." If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories that inspire, challenge, and stay with you.